about that. Boldness is not concerned with the response of the hearer. Boldness has something going on in here. I got to tell you about this. It's amazing. It can be very soft. It can be warm and gentle. It can be kind and from a loving heart. It's not mean. It's not obnoxious. It's not pushy. It's just convinced. And it's not afraid. And it's going to say it. It's going to say it in a good way, but it's going to get said. That's boldness. It's not just what you do. It's how you do it. God's like that. God's not just interested in us doing right things. God is very, very interested in how we do what we do. Okay, scratch the dictionary definition of boldness. Now this is the real biblical definition. Verse 20, for we cannot but speak of the things we've seen and heard.
Hey, I'm so happy that you've got this new resource, Boldness for Jesus Christ. Maybe you got it from a friend, or possibly you ordered it from Walk in the Word. Bottom line is you have it, and I believe that God's going to use it in your life. You know, when the history books are closed on this generation, I believe it's going to show that we have fallen into a very detrimental pattern in how we share our faith with others. How do we get so strategic? How do we get so clever and so subtle and so prolonged? In the early church, they shared the gospel in a much simpler way. They were bold in their faith. Now, some people think that means pushy or obnoxious, or you're going to hear this whether you want to or not, but that's not what it means at all. Boldness is the Spirit-given conviction that I must speak about the things that I've seen and heard. Now, if you long to see people in your life come to know Jesus Christ, if you have a vision for your life to be used and to win others to the family of God, this DVD is a biblical presentation of how to share your faith boldly. Paul said in Ephesians 6, pray for me that I will speak boldly as I ought to speak. It's not easy to do, but under the power of God's Spirit we can. And I'm going to be trusting with you that you're going to lead many people to faith in Jesus Christ through a biblical, bold witness for Him.
Acts chapter 4. And how many people have heard the message before that we were created in the image of God? Do you know that? You know that? That is a very, very complicated thing to understand. And what does that mean exactly, that we're made in it? Well, what it means on the surface is that there's stuff that's true of God that He put into us. And I'm not sure that I understand all that it means, but I find that that concept intersects our life in a lot of unusual ways. One of the ways that occurred to me this week, which is going to lead us into Acts chapter 4, is... This is a very hard lesson for me to learn, but I can remember my mother telling me, it's not just what you do, it's how you do it. I remember getting sent up to my bedroom, for example, to make my bed. And I'd come down like, 9 seconds later going, did it. And she's like, well, let's go see how you did it. We go upstairs, and sure enough, there was a blanket sort of remotely on the surface of the bed and somehow a pillow up near the headboard. But it was not adequate. I said, well, I made my bed. Well, technically, you probably did make the bed. But you didn't do a good job of it. And it's not just doing right things. It's how you do it. You have to give it your best. You have to do it a certain way. Now, that was a very hard lesson for me to learn. I can remember in high school going out with a particular girl and decided that I don't have many stories like that, almost none. But in this particular instance, it just wasn't going anywhere good. And I tried to communicate to her, we're not going to be going out anymore. And it turned up blowing up in my face. It was a big problem. And I was like, I told her, we're not going out anymore. Like, what are you supposed to do? And I got the message back loud and clear. It's not just what you do, it's how you do it. Ugh, that just seems to chase me everywhere. I remember when I was in college, I played basketball in high school. In college, I played basketball at a Christian college, just a pretty regular school, and it wasn't like a big deal or anything. But in high school, we were allowed a lot of latitude. And when a ref would make a bad call, which happened every game, if the ref would make a bad call, you were allowed to sort of, communicate without, too much, but you're allowed to let him know you didn't really appreciate it. You thought he was kind of off there. But in college, it was a Christian college, and our coach was extremely stringent. And so I would be like, he'd be like, you can't do that. I was like, I didn't make any gestures. I didn't say anything. I didn't, He said, yeah, but the look on your face. So I said, how? He said, look at. Technically, you didn't say anything, but you made it very clear that you didn't like it. You can't do that. I said, well, and here comes again. It's not just what you do, it's how you do it. I remember one of our sons, who shall remain nameless, one of our sons was in like 2nd or 3rd grade, and he, I thought, had written a nice little paper like you do in 3rd grade on something, a little 1-page report, and he was marked down a whole letter grade. I can remember going in and talking to the teacher and saying, "This is outrageous. How could you mark him down a whole letter grade? I mean, for what?" She says, "Well, it wasn't neat." I said, "But the content, it's all there. How can you mark him down a whole letter grade just for neatness?" And she said, "It's not just what you do. It's how you do it. It chases me everywhere." Well, I've come to understand that, I think, a lot more. And here's the thing. God's like that. God's not just interested in us doing right things. God is very, very interested in how we do what we do.